At 36 years old, I had $150,000 in debt and less than $20,000 in the bank, 2 young children, and a marriage that had just collapsed. The median age at divorce in Australia is 44 for women, which means the majority of women going through separation are doing it right in the middle of their peak earning years. Fathers who walk away from their responsibility, not all of them, but enough that it's become a pattern, not an exception in Australia. The women who understand what is coming are the ones who will be prepared. And preparation looks like building wealth outside of systems that can limit. Welcome to Rich and Regulated, where women learn to build wealth in alignment and flow. I'm Jessica Soul. For over a decade, I've helped women create the lives of their dreams, and here I'll share how I build wealth, fast-track results, and reveal money truths that will blow your mind. Let's get wealthy. At 36 years old, I had $150,000 in debt and less than $20,000 in the bank, 2 young children, and a marriage that had just collapsed. I'd literally lost almost everything, and I rebuilt it from scratch, alone, into a 7-figure portfolio. And today I'm going to give you the exact system that I used. And this is not the highlight reel version, this is the real one, including the part where the government wouldn't let me access my own benefits. And the moment I realised the financial system was never going to save me, starting with what losing everything actually taught me about building wealth. I want to start with this. You didn't come this far to have nothing to show for it, because I know who's watching this, and I know that you're not a woman who's been sitting still. You've worked, you've built, and I know you've shown up when it was hard and kept going when it would have been easier to stop. And I want you to know that you are not the problem here. And so why does real, lasting wealth still feel like it belongs to everyone else but you? That is the question that used to keep me up at night. And to be honest, it took losing almost everything to understand the answer. I came into this, into crypto, into financial sovereignty, into all of it through the kind of adversity that you do not plan for, and I wouldn't wish upon anyone. I was 36 years old and going through a divorce after 14 years with my ex-husband. 11 of those years we were married. And I want to be honest about what that actually looked like. And this is not the version that people share publicly through pretty and inspiring Instagram reels, but this is the raw version. Because I know that if one woman hears this story and has her life changed as a result, it's going to be worth my vulnerability today. At the end of the day, the truth is there was domestic violence, there was financial abuse, there was unaddressed trauma on both sides, and that had quietly poisoned everything inside of our marriage. We had 2 children, a 2-year-old and an 8-year-old at the time, who needed a mother who had it together. And at the same time, privately, I was falling apart. My marriage was toxic and dangerous. And to be honest, the finances, they were a disaster. We had sold property and made amazing profit. And somehow still, we had found ourselves drowning in over $150,000 worth of debt, while driving cars we couldn't afford, while living in a way that I can only describe now as completely irresponsible. We were in our 30s, behaving like nothing was ever going to catch up with us, and then it did. And I want to pause on that number for a second, because $150,000 of personal debt while raising 2 children effectively alone, with less than $20,000 to my name in the bank, virtually no superannuation. This is not just a financial problem that I was dealing with. This was a survival situation. And I know that I am not alone in this. And I want to explain what the data actually looks like for Australian women. The median age at divorce in Australia is 44 for women, which means the majority of women going through separation are doing it right in the middle of their peak earning years. The years when they should be building, when they should be compounding, when they should be growing. And instead, through divorce, they're starting over. And 34% of sole parent households in Australia are living in what is classed as poverty. And the overwhelming majority of those solo parents, they're women. By the time a woman is in her 40s, her average superannuation balance is around $109,000 compared to $140,000 for a man in the same age bracket. And on average, women in their 40s have approximately 28% less superannuation than men at the same life stage. And by retirement, the average superannuation payout for a woman is a third of the payout for men. Despite the fact that women live longer, it's a third. And I want you to let that land. What about child support in all of this? Let's talk about that too, because I see it every single day in the women that I work with. Fathers who walk away from their responsibility. Not all of them, but enough that it's become a pattern, not an exception in Australia. And the maximum government parenting payment for a single parent in Australia is $987.70 a fortnight. That's your safety net. Less than $1,000 every 2 weeks to raise children in one of the most expensive countries in the world. And the actual cost of raising a child here, estimates range from between $159,000 to over $548,000 across an 18-year span per child. So you do the math. The system was never going to save us. And unfortunately for me, I learned that the hard way. And here's what I want you to know right now before we go any further. If any of this is landing for you, and if you're nodding along and feeling that uncomfortable mix of recognition and frustration, you don't have to sit with these feelings alone. I have a free community called Crypto for Women, and we currently have over 350 beautiful women inside, having real, open, unfiltered conversations about feminine wealth creation. And there is no jargon, no bro energy, no one trying to sell you something before you're ready. It is just a beautiful group of women building, learning, asking questions in a space that I have made entirely for them. And the link is below this video. So come and introduce yourself. It's going to cost you nothing, and it will change the way you think about your financial future. I would love to have you inside of there. Just quickly, guys, if you're a woman who's earning well but still feels like your money isn't working for you, I can help. My Build Your Wealth portal is the perfect place to begin, and for less than $100 a month, I'll teach you the exact groundwork that has allowed me to create freedom for my family. Just hit the link in the show notes to connect into my community today. Now back to the episode. All right, so back to the story, because this story for me gets harder before it gets any easier. And I think that you really need to hear this part as well. At the time of my divorce, I was so scared, and it wasn't a paralyzed kind of scared. I had a coaching business. I knew how to earn money. What I was more terrified of at that point in my life was burnout. And that fear turned out to be completely justified because I burnt out fast and hard. I pushed myself to the wall trying to trade time for money fast enough to stay afloat. And then something happened that cracked something open in me permanently. While I was separated but still legally married, because in Australia, the government makes you wait a full year before they let you legally divorce. There were unresolved tax issues in my ex-husband's business. And because of those issues, even with a domestic violence order in place, I could not access the family tax benefit, which meant that the childcare gap fee was not being covered. I wrote letters, I made numerous phone calls, and I begged the system that was supposed to be protecting me and supposed to be doing its job. And for months, I was paying full childcare fees that I couldn't afford. And I'm talking approximately $700 a week to have my 2-year-old cared for while I was trying to pay the rent, the food, the bills, and everything else. And that's when I understood something that I haven't been able to unsee since. And that is the system that was designed to support us deeply is structurally broken. And this is not because of incompetence. This is because of design. And so at that time in my life, I started to ask bigger questions. I remember driving through the city one morning, watching people flood into office buildings. And I thought, no, this is not the answer. Working harder inside of broken systems was never going to be enough for me. I knew I needed to step out of the system entirely. And so what I did is I started studying obsessively. I needed to understand for myself where traditional banking was actually heading. I started to look at what central banking, aka the CBDCs, were going to mean for ordinary people. Right now, the Reserve Bank of Australia and Treasury are actively running a multi-year research program on digital money and CBDCs, exploring what government-issued digital currency could look like in Australia. And this conversation is happening in every developed economy on the planet. What that means practically is that governments are moving towards a world where every dollar is digital, programmable, and trackable, where authorities can have real-time visibility on how your money moves and where your access to your own funds is potentially going to be conditional. Hear that again, where access to your own funds will potentially be conditional. And we're already seeing this. Banks making it harder to move large amounts of your own money, flagging transfers, requesting explanations about what you're spending on, creating friction around accessing what is legally yours. And this, guys, is not conspiracy. This is documented. It's happening and it is real. And I'm not saying any of this to frighten you. I'm saying it because the women who understand what is coming are the ones who will be prepared. And preparation looks like building wealth outside of systems that can limit access to your funds. And that is what decentralized assets do. And that's why I went all in on learning this. I studied market cycles. I learned how to read the waves. I built passive income streams. I went from zero in my portfolio to a 7-figure portfolio, starting with only $20,000 in my bank, $150,000 in debt, 2 children, and no man to help me figure it out. I did it. Not because I'm exceptional, but because I had no other choice. And so I became exceptional at this skill. And this is exactly why I have now built Crypto Foundations, why I have built Wealth AI, and why I am obsessed with my work. Because what I figured out should not be a secret. Because the framework I have built from the worst possible starting point deserves to be in the hands of every woman who is ready to use it. This is the exact blueprint I used to go from 150K in debt to a 7-figure portfolio without tech overwhelm, without needing a finance degree, without anyone handing me the answers. And inside of Crypto Foundations, I will give you the complete wealth infrastructure. So if you're ready to stop waiting and start building, the link to join Crypto Foundations is below this video right now. And this is the room I wish I had had access to at the age of 36. And it's here for you right now, today. Now, I also want to talk to the women in this room who are watching this, who are already inside a happy marriage, because this isn't just a conversation for women who've been through divorce. I talk to women every single day who are building as a couple, and these women are quietly aware that they don't actually understand what is happening in their family's finances. Most of these women are in their 40s, realizing that the plan they had isn't really a plan. Women who are sitting back, who are just waiting for their inheritance to eventually solve the problems that are inside of their family's structure. And I want to say this as clearly and as kindly as I can, but if you are waiting for an inheritance to arrive before you feel financially secure, this is not a wealth strategy. That is a waiting strategy. And I am telling you, your children do not need an inheritance when you are gone. What they need is a foundation built by you now, while they are young, while compounding has decades to work for them. And I want to put this in context. An 18-year-old handed a wealth blueprint is infinitely more powerful than a 45-year-old handed a lump sum of money when it's already too late to use it strategically. The thing is, generational wealth is not what you leave behind. It is what you build and teach your children while you're alive. And I started Rich and Regulated and built Crypto Foundations because I refused to let another woman go through what I went through alone. Not the financial terror, not the helplessness of realizing that at 36, I had no foundation beneath me, not the indignity of begging a broken system for help and being turned away. I didn't start this to build a brand. I started it the day I realized I had figured something out that too many women do not have access to, and that keeping it to myself would actually be unforgivable. And so at the end of the day, here's where we land. If you are ready to go all in, if you want the full framework, the strategy, the private access, the community of women who are building serious wealth, Crypto Foundations is for you, and the link is below. If you're not quite there yet, and if you want to start by getting comfortable, asking questions, and being around women who are already on this path, come and join me inside of Crypto for Women. Over 350 of us, completely free, real conversations, and a space built entirely for you. That link is below too. Either way, you do not have to figure this out alone. This is why I'm here. This is why my work exists, and I'm so glad that you have found it. If you've gotten value from today's episode, make sure you subscribe and leave a 5-star review. And if you're ready for more support in building regulated wealth strategies, check out the link in the show notes. Have a beautiful day.